Hi, Emma.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, Anne. Just double checking you can hear us okay?
Morning. Yes, thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, members. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the November CNPA Planning Committee meeting. For those members of the public joining us today, either virtually or in person, I am Russell Jones, the convener of the Parks Planning Committee. Today's meeting will also be streamed live on the @Cairngorms YouTube channel. I'd like to ask the clerk to run a roll call. Karen, please.
Jeeva Blackett.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
Sandy Bremner.
Good morning.
Jackie Brereton. Present. Peter Cosgrove.
Good morning.
Kenny Deans.
Good morning.
Paul Gibb.
Here.
Hannah Grist.
Good morning.
Russell Jones.
Here.
John Kirk.
Morning.
Bill Lobbin.
Yeah.
Laura McCallum.
Here.
Eleanor McIntosh. Morning. Ian McLaren.
Morning.
Fiona McLean.
Morning.
Steve McElwright.
Yeah, I'm here.
Duncan Miller.
Morning.
Anne Ross.
Good morning.
Derek Ross.
Yeah.
Michael Williamson.
Here.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Members, to help move the business forward effectively, please keep your questions succinct and to the point, focused firmly on clarification of technical or planning issues. Once we have moved into the discussion phase of an application, it would be helpful if members could indicate at an appropriate point if you are minded to put forward any proposal regarding the officer's recommendations. Please raise your hand to indicate that you wish to speak. During the meeting, please make sure your microphones are muted unless you are speaking to ensure premium sound quality on the live stream. Should a member wish to pull together an amendment to the motion on any of the items today, a breakout room is available, and you will be joined by our legal representative, Peter Ferguson, who is here with us today. Morning, Peter. To move on to item 2, minutes of the previous meeting on the 29th of August. Can I ask if the committee is content with the accuracy of the minutes of the meeting? Are we content? And can I assume that we are happy to approve these minutes? There's a couple of matters arising. I'll hand over to Dave to run us through the action points. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, convener. So just a few points that actions from the last meeting. So just referring to the minutes, paragraph 31, there was an action to carry out the site visit, which was to the River Tromey ahead of this planning committee meeting. That action has obviously been closed. That site visit took place on the 10th of October, and that item is back on the agenda for today's business. Then at paragraph 38, the committee convener was to write a letter to the applicant that was relating to the track at Muckrach Estate, expressing the committee's concern and disappointment about the retrospective nature of that application. That action has also been dealt with. That letter was sent on the 4th of September. And then finally, at paragraph 60 of the minute, there were amendments to be made to the planning committee standing orders before them being presented to the board for approval. Again, that action's been completed. That amendment to the standing orders was made, and then board approved the updated standing orders on the 26th of September. So I think that's all the actions complete, convener.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Moving on to item 4, do we have any declarations of interest?
I am declaring an interest on the River Tromey application. That's agenda item 5. As I've done previously, I've worked on the project doing ecology surveys, and so we'll leave when that item is discussed.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Jiva Blackett. Morning, Jiva.
Morning, Russell. Yes, thank you. I also have an interest in item 5, in that according to the new standing orders, if you do not attend a site visit, you cannot take part in the planning, and I was not in the country on the day of the site visit, so I could not attend. So I will leave the room and not take part. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jiva. Anne Ross. Good morning, Anne.
Good morning. Item 5 again. I did not take part in the site visit, therefore, according to the CMPA planning standing orders, I cannot take part, so I will withdraw. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anne. Fiona McLean. Good morning, Fiona.
Morning, Russell. I'm in a similar position. I did not attend the site visit for item 5, so I will also leave the room for that item.
Okay, thank you, Fiona. Derek Ross.
I'm in a similar position, so I will also leave the room, Chair.
Thank you, Derek. And Steve McElwright.
Yeah, same again what Jiva said.
Okay, thank you all. Oh, beg your pardon. Sorry, Jackie.
I also wasn't able to make the site visit, so I'll be abstaining from that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. So we will now move on to item 5. So if you have declared an interest or you didn't attend the site visit, could you please leave the room or drop out of the call just now? Thank you. Okay, thank you, members. We still have 12 members present in the room and online. So we'll move on to the first application. This is for detailed planning permission, realignment of 400 metres of the River Tromey at land 670 metres northwest of the Dale of Killyhuntly Farmhouse, Kingussie. And this will be introduced by Catherine Donaghy, Planning Officer. Good morning, Catherine.
Thank you, convener. Thank you. This application, as was mentioned in the minutes, it was deferred at the last planning committee in August to undertake the site visit so that the members would see the surrounding environment of the site from both, and we visited both sides of the river, Dale of Killyhuntly and Invertromey, to look at the context of the proposals. So, and there's a short addendum report to the to the papers today, which addresses one of the points that we, at the last committee, I explained that there had been a late representation received out of time, and it raised a couple of material planning considerations which are covered in the addendum report, one relating to ownership of the river, which has been addressed by the applicants, and also another points about potential other works that could be done, which are out with the scope of this planning application, and which we did, however, ask SEPA and the flood risk management team to comment on, and they remain of the view that this proposal is acceptable. So the proposal is to divert you can see it there in red, 400 metres of the River Tromie, where it runs into the River Spey, and they're proposing to have an undersized channel running west towards a drain, Invertromie Drain, which we saw in the distance on the site visit. The proposal is located on to the southeast of Kingussie at Inchmarshes, which is a highly designated site. It's got Ramsar international designations and SAC, SPA site, and it's a nature reserve, the RSPB nature reserve, so it's extremely high environmental importance. The idea of the application, as part of that, obviously, there was a habitat regulation appraisal carried out for this by ourselves and in consultation with Nature Scot, which concluded that this would not have any adverse impacts on the integrity of these designated sites, and that there may well be improvements in the conservation objectives, subject to planning conditions regarding construction environment management plans and so on. So that's the sort of background of it. You can see to the right-hand side of the site, the Dale of Killahintley farm, and to the left-hand part of the slide is Invertromie Steadings, quite a distance away from the application site. This just shows an aerial photograph, so you can see the sort of what it looks like, the River Spey and the Tromie running into it. The Tromie, that last section of the Tromie, has been historically kind of straightened and embankments put along the sides of it, so the water runs straight down. The idea of this application is to reconnect the River Tromie with its floodplain, the Inchmarshes, and to try and relieve pressure on the agricultural land at Dale of Killahintley, where there has been some breaches. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm going 2 slides too far there. So that shows the proposal, which is to put in what they call a lateral bar into the river, which is they're basically scooping out a bit of the riverbed and the Tromie and creating a kind of another part of raised gravel, to try and encourage the water to run towards the west into that new channel, which will be formed. They've given a detailed construction method statement of how the channel will be formed in a way that would minimise any silt deposition while the works were taking place. And that channel is deliberately undersized, the channel you see there in red, in order that it overflows, the water can overflow onto the floodplain, and that allows the deposition of silt, etc. on there and avoids it being deposited into the river. The proposal is there's no material will be brought onto the site, no new material to create this. There's a borrow pit already, which we saw on the site visit near Dale of Killahintley in the lower right-hand part of the slide there, the little red dot. They can use that material using existing ford crossing points to take material over as required. And then there's some old river dredgings further up nearer the river in the top sort of left-hand corner of the slide there, where that material can, if necessary, be used. But the idea is to use material on site and any other scrapings to be put above the floodplain near Dale of Killahintley. All this land is under the control of the RSPB, and there's a tenant farmer, which we saw on site. The idea is that this channel will have what they call riffles, that sort of up and down bits within it, so that the water doesn't go as quickly down it, and also creates habitat for Atlantic salmon and other species, which will improve the biodiversity of the river. And at the moment, this will be an improvement for the habitats for these valuable species that are in the area. Yes, that was just cross sections to show that. This is what we saw on site, where the river is already breaking out towards the left and running, the water sort of breaking out from the River Tromie and that's where the natural breaking point is, that they're going to continue. Proposal is to continue with the channel, the new channel. And that's, you can see that we breakout area, and then the river, the marsh is beyond that, the transition mire as they call it, part of which is grazed by sheep and depending on the weather conditions. And then it runs across there to join an existing drain, they called it Invertromi drain, to run back to the confluence onto the Spey. That's the Invertromi drain, which its banks will be lowered a little bit to allow that reconnection with the floodplain. The river used to, there's the applicant put in supporting material which shows the river used to have a meander, and now they're trying to recreate a more natural alluvial fan here. The applicant, I should have mentioned, put in a supporting statement, a sort of non-technical summary almost of the proposals which we attached as an appendix, and that clearly explains what the proposals are. That's a slide that kind of shows that context, the wider context of the drain which the new channel will connect onto. That's where it comes out onto the Spey at the moment. Our outdoor access team have commented on the application, and they're happy. The River Spey is a core path and it's used by canoeists and paddle boarders, etc. And our outdoor access team wanted to be sure that there wouldn't be a change in the sort of water conditions that might affect the canoeists. There's been discussions with other water users by the applicants, and our outdoor access team are satisfied that there is no change in circumstances and it's fine in terms of outdoor access. That's the existing where the Tromi connects into the Spey at the moment. That's the wee borrow pit over at Dale of Killahuntly on the other side of the river. And that's the existing sort of ford crossing over there at the moment. There's no proposal to get to fell any trees. There might be some limited trimming of branches, but no proposals to fell trees at all, and no proposals for any new tracks or accesses. You can drive across the field as we saw at the planning site visit. So no changes there. There's been various surveys of wildlife, etc. carried out, and the applicant has recently put in species protection plans as well to us. Again, that's a sort of wider view of the whole area that we walked over. Dale of Killahuntly on the right and the Invertromi on the left. Yeah. And this is the fields that we saw at Dale of Killahuntly Farm, where you see the sort of breach, that the water runs out that way at the moment. It breaches the existing embankments, and the field is now quite marshy, and there's been quite a detailed optioneering report of all the options of what the different options for addressing flood risk at Killahuntly on the fields, and how to reconnect the river with its floodplain. And this is what led to the proposal that's now before us. And as a result of this, there should be a reclamation of some of that marshy ground. I think it's about 10, 12 hectares should be able to be grazed again, which is beneficial, obviously, in agricultural terms. So in terms of this application, the principle of this application fully complies with the National Planning Framework and the objectives to do with climate change, sustainable development, etc. And it also complies with our own local development plan, reconnecting the river to its floodplain in a natural manner, creating better habitat for fish and other species in the area. So in principle, we're, satisfied that it complies fully with the local development plan. In terms of environmental impacts, those impacts are all addressed by our ecology officer and in the habitat regulation appraisal, which concludes, as I mentioned earlier, that there is no adverse effect on these internationally and nationally designated sites, and that there should be an improvement in habitats. Landscape impacts are considered to be positive, if anything. The sort of more natural alignment of the river, but certainly it's in a discrete location that has no wider landscape impacts or adverse impacts on the special qualities of the park. In terms of flood risk, our technical consultees, SEPA, and the flood risk management team of Highland Council are satisfied with this proposal. They've looked at it in detail. There's a flood risk assessment, and they don't consider there's any risk to the nearest property, which is Invertromi steading some considerable distance to the south, and that it should, the flood risk management team are supportive of this type of solution. And there is no servicing impacts, there's no change to access or anything like that. So overall, our view is that this application complies with a local development plan policy. We're recommending approval subject to a number of conditions requiring pre-construction surveys, detailed construction environment management plan, which the applicant has provided some of that information during the course of the application. So on that basis, we recommend approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. We'll move to questions for the planning officer, and first is Bill Lobban.
Kathleen, has there been any assessment of the economic impact that this will have on either of the two farms?
No, not in terms of the economic impact. I guess the applicant might be in a better position to address this. It's a tenant farmer and the farms are in ownership of the RSPB. But I would have thought that giving 10 hectares, reclaiming marshy land at Dale of Kilhuntly would be beneficial to have it back in grazing land.
Do you want to come back in, Bill?
Do you not think that, Catherine, it would have been an idea that they would have an assessment of the economic impact, not just what might be or could be or should be? And I don't actually think the applicant is the right person to answer that question.
We wouldn't normally, and maybe Governor Dave could add to that, but we wouldn't normally ask for an economic impact information on this type of application, which is basically just for alignment of a section of river. There is the nature reserve itself, as I understand it, it attracts a lot of visitors itself at the moment, and presumably that's because of the wildlife in the area. But in terms of, and they're looking to improve that by this proposal, but I wouldn't have said we would normally ask for an economic impact assessment on this particular type of application.
I was actually thinking more about the economic impact it would have of either of the two farms, because obviously you're effectively shifting the boundary between the two farms. So the river splits the two farms, and now the river will split the two farms differently. And will that impact either farm? So I think we should have done, but never mind.
Okay, Dave, do you wish to come at this point?
Yeah, thanks, convener. I guess just to give a bit of context on that, I think it's worth. Catherine mentioned this in her presentation, but the site is highly designated from an environmental point of view, and it is managed principally as a nature reserve. So it's worth probably bearing that in context in mind. I think from our perspective, we've looked at this and we are satisfied from a development plan policy point of view that there are expected benefits in terms of the bringing back and progressively drying up of the area of land to the eastern side at Dale of Kilhuntly, which are kind of larger in scale than the impact on grazing land on the western side, or in Invertromey. I think the applicant may well talk in a bit more detail about the scale of that impact. Our understanding, I think, is it's about 10 to 12 hectares on the Dale of Kilhuntly side that is expected to see some benefit from this, whereas the amount of land that might be impacted on the western side at Invertromey is around about 2 to 3 hectares, of which a fair bit is already kind of Maya habitat. So we're satisfied from a development plan point of view in that respect.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Sandy Bremner.
Yeah, I think this point was largely covered by final remarks and by the recommendation, but just in the interest of clarity, is it still the position of our officers that the application complies fully with the relevant NPF4 and LDP planning policies, and that there are no material issues to change that conclusion? That's bearing in mind the various points raised when the application first came to this committee and the following site visit and issues just raised today, obviously is subject to the proposed conditions.
Yes, absolutely. The overriding part of the National Planning Framework that has to be considered with every application, as well as to ensure that significant weight is given to the global climate and nature crisis. And this is what this application is seeking to do. So absolutely, we consider it complies fully with the policies.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. John Kirk.
Thank you. I can understand what they're trying to do with the river. We have a very similar situation with our own farm, but...
John, could I just say to you just now, could you just have a question just now? If we just stick to questions, have you got a question? Then we'll go to debate. Is that okay?
Okay, right, okay, I'll leave it to debate then.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions, members? Can I just ask you a question, Catherine? Obviously, you've put a lot of work into this report, and well done. And the consultees in the report are SEPA, Scottish Water, Spey Fishery Board, Nature Scot, Flood Management Team, Historic Environment and Archaeology Team. Plus, from the National Park, we have a comment from the Outdoor Access Team, Landscape Officers and Ecology Officers. Is there any reason that we didn't ask our own agricultural officer to do an agricultural impact assessment, which maybe would have covered some of the points that we're talking about?
As I said, again, Dave and Gavin may want to add to it, but we wouldn't normally have, to my knowledge, asked for that sort of information. I mean, it's an interesting point, which I'm noting, but we wouldn't normally have asked for that, given the context of what we were talking about in terms of the reclamation of some agricultural land and the loss of a small amount of land on the Invertromi side, which can continue to be used for agricultural purposes in any event. But no, it's not the normal practice to consult. Oh, sorry, Gavin.
Yeah, I was just Gavin.
Yeah, I was just going to answer that. Yeah, we don't have any policy hooks which say that we do agricultural impact assessments in policy, and it's not part of that officer's job description just now. Now, that could be changed, but that's not the purpose of their job with the Park Authority, to advise on planning applications. And there isn't a policy in either NPF4 or the local development plan that would relate to agricultural impact assessments on something like this, which isn't prime quality agricultural land. So that's why.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, members? Duncan Miller.
Thanks, Catherine. I'm just looking at the map of what is proposed, and there's kind of an orange bit that says lateral bar to like the right as you're coming down. Is that to block up the other breach on the other side to stop? Yeah, on that one there. Is that to stop the water flowing into the right-hand side?
Yeah, that's the general idea, is to try and encourage the water to go towards the left. It's just putting some gravel into the river, taking it out, scooping it out of some pools, creating some more pools, and trying to sort of gently kind of, I suppose, direct the water that way. So yes, that was the general idea of it.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, members. If we have no more questions for Catherine, thank you very much, Catherine. I'd like to introduce from the applicants, good morning, Steve Blow and Karen Birkby. Welcome this morning. And I'd like to invite Steve Blow to address the committee, and you have 10 minutes, Steve, and we'll give you a minute's warning before the end.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, convener. Thank you, committee, for the opportunity to speak. Let me, there we go. Let's go to the presentation. So, yeah, obviously, thanks to Catherine for the introduction to the project. That covers sort of the majority of the information as well that I've got within the presentation. So I'll maybe sort of focus on some of the key bits of information and maybe pick up on some of those points about the agriculture as well, which we can also cover in questions afterwards. I've got Catherine Birkby, Senior Site Manager, with us today as well. So once I've finished with the presentation, then we can both take questions. Inchmarsh is National Nature Reserve have an aerial view of the reserve or part of the reserve. The Inch Marshes itself is 1,000 hectares, often cited as the most natural floodplain system in the UK. But when it's partially flooded like this, you can also see it's obviously providing a fantastic sort of natural floodplain, natural service in terms of storing water. But we can also see the embankments along the side of the Spey. On the right-hand side of the picture, we can see cut-off meanders from previous historical straightening and land improvement practices. It's very natural. It functions naturally, but there's opportunities for it to function even more naturally, and this is what this realignment of the river would help to facilitate. We're looking particularly at Inch Fen, Cool Fen, with Loch Inch in the distance in the sort of top left. And this is one of the areas that could be affected by the river if were the Tromie to breach out to the right. Go to the next image. So coming into the Tromie itself, there's an image produced with a LiDAR survey, so a super accurate survey that has been used to generate the modelling data as well. We start with the high ground in red, going down to the sort of the burgundy ground being the low ground. And you can see the course of the river going up through the middle of the picture, highlighted in the sort of light blue colour, which is where the embankments were put in a couple of hundred years ago. That's disconnected the river from the wider floodplain. It's catching the sediment that's being brought down from further upstream, and that's kind of leading to the issue that we're trying to deal with. You can also make out in the middle of the picture that kind of hazy blue into mauve picture section, which is the alluvial floodplain, where the Tromie used to move much more regularly, and there are darker sort of stripes within there, which are a relic channel. So the river used to be able to move around on the floodplain, which it's not able to do anymore. Moving just to the aerial image, I'll not spend too much time because Catherine's kind of covered all the information, but again, it's kind of gives you the overall layout with the Invertromie fields on the left-hand side of the river, Delicately Huntley fields on the right, Spey running along the top edge of the image. And this was taken earlier this year. We can sort of right in the middle on the left-hand side of the Tromie, we can just see the little nub that is the start of the new channel, essentially. And on the right-hand side, you can see that area which has been receiving constant flow across the Delicately Huntley sort of fields for the last 2 to 3 years. And that has impacted on Cameron, the tenant farmer, in terms of reducing the area that's available for silage cutting on the Delicately Huntley fields. So that's reduced that area, and the proposal essentially will try and improve that situation for him. Just pop in the outline of the project itself on top. In reference to Duncan's question, yes, the orange section is the lateral bar. That is bringing up material from the 2 large red kind of pools, which is the source of the majority of the material. Should hopefully supply all the material for all the riffle features and the bar features. That brings up that right-hand bank where it is particularly sort of weak at the moment, and encourages the water over towards the left-hand side of the bank. Yellow features are the riffle features, which are to help sort of manage energy, encourage natural processes and provide fish habitat. There are small pools as well through the rest of the new channel, which provides fish habitat. And then the purple areas, as Catherine referred to, are where the banks are being lowered, particularly along the sides of the drain, where it's had a sort of historical clearance of material. So, as David said, you've got the extensive kind of wetland area on the Invertromie field as well, which the channel very quickly moves into. Taking some extracts from the optioneering final report that Dynamic Rivers produced. The image in the top left is the current situation. It's a little bit fine, but you can kind of, again, it gives you the indication of the broad and shallow water that's heading out across the Delicately Huntley fields before it gets caught by the drain system. that then moves into the drain system. It's and then kind of gets lost at the moment. That material, that water that's going to the west, can be absorbed by the marsh system without any issues, but it is impacting on the field. The image below was our kind of do nothing model, where essentially the right-hand bank continues to degrade, more water moves to the right into Delyth Killyhuntley. So you can see this sort of colour grading, where it's red, it's over a 30 centimetres deep constantly. So you get a lot more water kind of moving across that area, further reduction of the area available for agricultural land. And you also get significant pooling of water, which will have a negative impact on the designated features and on the transition mire habitat. So you get a net loss for that. You also lose fish passage. So that's a situation where which would have a negative impact. You can also see how the embankments on the Spey stop the water from the Tromey getting back into the Spey, so it can't reconnect until it gets all the way down through Inchfen, Coolfen, almost as far as Loch Inch, and that has potential threats to access infrastructure along that way. The big picture to the top right is the new channel with the same water depths modelled, and I think this particularly indicates how the new channel is dominant over the existing channel. So obviously we had discussion on site as well, but between 60 and 90% of all the water coming down the Tromey, depending on the time of year, will be taken by the new channel, and it will quite quickly overtop and deposit material onto the field either side. So it's a little bit of a pressure release valve. It allows natural processes. There will still be water in the main stem of the channel as well, but you can see in terms of the modelling, because that comes down to anywhere between sort of 10 and 30%, 40% in the main stem, then it cuts off the supply to the right-hand side, and the lateral bar has an impact on that in terms of, again, pushing it off to the left. Just to kind of cover some of the flooding, there was kind of concern we didn't manage to stop on site. So I've put up the three SEPA flood risk management maps with the Invertromey steadings marked in the first image, the 1 in 10-year flood map, and we also have the outline of the project area up on the top of this, the Tromey, sort of joining into the Invertromey drain there. And this really just, I suppose, is to kind of illustrate how the Tromey, the wetland systems that are there already in the Spey kind of interact, how they sort of fill up the basin of inch marshes as you get into the more serious flooding.
Steve, you have 1 minute left.
Okay. And 1 in 1,000 flood year map where it's coming sort of further up the field, but again, where the little yellow dot is where Invertromey steadings is, and that stays on the higher dry ground. And the proposal doesn't have any material impact on that flooding system at all. Really, just to say, we've worked with NatureScot, Spey Fishery Board, Spey Catchment Initiative, to get a sort of a resilient plan in place. It's not just a temporary fix, it is looking to do something which will work for the longer term. And we contribute and meet guidance, including things like the partnership plan for the park, Spey Catchment Plan. So I feel like it's a very positive and last little thing.
That's just about out of time there, Steve. Okay. Apologies. That's your.
I'll go to the map and then we can use that for discussion.
Okay. Thank you very much. Members, do we have any questions for the applicant? Eleanor Mackent.
Yeah, thanks. There's quite a bit being made about the agricultural pros and cons of losing a bit more on one side and regaining on the Invertromey side. But what is the time scale for the Invertromey side to come back into agricultural use, because it is quite rushy at the moment?
So I suppose it would be the Dell of Clean side is the side that's being impacted by that constant flow. That's the bit which is the improved agricultural ground. Yeah, so that's the bit that would essentially we'd be looking to cut off the water supply to that side. It's taken a couple of years for it to kind of develop to that with that constant flow. Once that flow is cut off, it will take a period of time, another couple of years, I guess, of cutting and reseeding to reinstate that.
But you haven't actually done any work as to how long that'll take, because rushes take a long, long time to get rid of. It's not a quick fix. And I just feel it's a bit of a red herring, you know, the issue about, oh, well, we're taking from this side, but we're enhancing the other side, because it's a long-term project to get rid of that rushes.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I think I suppose at the moment you've got the option of putting in the realignment and reducing the water flow to that side, so reducing the conditions that would favour the rush development. If we don't do the realignment, then water will continue to flow that way and potentially impact more on that piece of land. So we feel like it's, even if it will take some time, and you want to comment on the restoration and the management of the grassland, because RSPB take a part in working with Cameron to get that field to a good condition. I'll pass over to you, Karen.
Yeah, so that land is under a seasonal grazing let, so it will be very much down to RSPB to do the restoration work to get that back into a good agricultural condition where Cameron can cut it for silage. So it won't be down to the tenant to do that, it will be very much down to us to do that. So yeah, we'll put in a programme of liming to get the pH down to what it needs to be, some work around management of the rushes, and then some reseeding work if required. I think it's pretty much, we'll have to just wait and see how quickly it dries out to be able to implement that. I think it's quite unknown at the moment, so, but there's a commitment to do it, to get it to where it needs to be. And we have been working really closely with Cameron to improve sort of some of his other reseed fields to compensate for where losses are being had because of the ground becoming wetter.
Would it not speed up the process if you were to repair some of that damage to the banks that we saw on the site visit?
So we have been doing some green bank repairs to sort of help slow that flow of water into that field, but we don't feel a hard engineered bank repair is a suitable option, especially when potentially, you know, the lateral bar will go in, which will sort of provide that long-term solution.
Okay, thank you. John Kirk.
Thank you. I mean, obviously the water table has raised because of the amount of gravel in the river, so the field's going to be wet all the time. Is there, you know, how much further up the river are you going to dredge to lower that water table? I can understand what you're trying to do with taking the water down and away from Cameron's field, but because the water table's high, unless it's dredged, it's never going to sort itself out. It's still going to have a high water table. And another thing, we've just seen the A9 at Daviot, where they've relined the river at Dalmagary and they've lost 2,000 fish because of something's went wrong. What's your idea to stop any damage to the fishing? The fishing's not good anyway, so that's a bit of a worry for a lot of folk.
Yes, so I think in terms of the first point about depth of the river, so as you'll see, the larger red blob kind of upstream of the channel, that's where we're taking sediment from the channel. We'll be lowering the bed in that location, and then the new channel leaves and is excavated out of the left-hand bank, is lowered to bed level, so it takes that water out and allows the transport of sediment on down through that system, and then is deposited in a more natural fan-like system. So we don't have concern about sort of other sort of sections of the river. The lower pool, pool 10, which is the one downstream of the lateral bar, that will actually probably take out a chunk of that plug that we looked at on site, and that will free up some of that movement past the lateral bar and on down to the rest of the river. We only really have a small number of locations where the river gets out over the embankment, and it will continue to do that in periods of particularly high spate, because the embankments were there as a summer thing rather than an all year round thing. You'll also still have movement of river from the Spey in the winter, kind of coming up in big sort of system, big spates. So it will continue to be sort of a system and a farming on the floodplain type of system, but we feel that this is going to provide a sort of an option that actually will have a long-term beneficial solution and not have to need to dredge repeatedly, which is what is obviously we're moving away from that. Impacts on the fish habitat. It's seen as a system that really just speeds water on down a river, and it causes somebody else trouble sort of downstream. So I think this is seen as a way to manage that. In terms of the fish, protecting the fish, so the Construction Environment Management Plan uses silt curtains to manage sort of fine silt in sections of construction. The majority of the new channel is dug offline, so you have no movement of water through that system. There will still be silt curtains sort of through that system. Once the channel is constructed, then you flush water down the system. You start to lower the upstream end, allow water through, and use a combination of silt mats and a pumped system, which has been used sort of elsewhere very effectively, just to move that sort of that initial bloom of silt out onto the adjacent sort of grass and wetland area where it will be caught and settled. Once that's running clean, then you connect it up, and that kind of essentially avoids that risk of having excess silt and turbidity kind of into the river. As part of the monitoring during construction as well, there'll be regular checks of the turbidity within the river, just to make sure that there isn't sort of excess of silt going through. So that's the proposal in terms of the way the contractor would do the work.
Okay, thank you. Duncan Miller.
Thanks. If this doesn't work as it's intended to, so like dry up the right hand side, is there a plan B? For instance, say that lateral bar in a big flood gets washed away, and then it's in a position where both sides are potentially getting wet the whole time. Is there a kind of contingency plan or a plan B if it was to fail?
I suppose working with sort of dynamic rivers, they're very much a specialist hydrological sort of engineering consultancy, and the discussion really is about creating a solution that will manage the river and will manage that energy and take away the supply to the right hand side. I think it is water. It kind of does what it wants to do fundamentally. So we direct it as best we can and expect it to behave based on their experience and based on the modelling to take that flow to the left. We don't have a lot of the optioneering around the right hand side was about how do we manage water if we were just to go with the way that the river wants to go. But every version of that had an impact, a negative impact on designated features and species. So we kind of erred away from that. I think, as Karen said, we would put this in place, observe it. We've got part of the first 5 years is to make sure that fish habitat's maintained, that the channel's doing what it wants to do. If it continues to go to the right, then I think that would be a case of RSPB and the tenant looking at what the options are to manage that. But at the moment, based on everything we've pulled together over the last sort of year and a bit, we're confident that this solution will work and will be a longer term fix for that particular part of the reserve.
Okay, members. Can I just ask you one question, Steve? Your channel's 500 millimetres deep. Is that from grass level when we were standing on the grass that day on the site visit, or is that from the river level? We're going down. You're going down 500 metres.
So it's
500 millimetres.
Yeah, no, yeah. So average depth is about is half a metre. Yeah, you come out from the riverbed. So essentially, the new channel will start on that on the left-hand bank, be excavated down to the bed level of the Tromie where it is now, and then will be on average half a metre deep, all the way on down through the rest of the excavation. So it might start a little bit deeper depending on where the bed level sits, but then kind of just continues to go down. You've got the pools in there, so there will be deeper sections. You've got the sort of the inset berms that provide a more diverse sort of shallow to deep kind of habitat as well, and sort of essentially replicating natural features in there. But the average is the sort of I think when I measured it out on site, I was between 5 and 7 metres wide and half a metre deep. That was what we're aiming for.
Okay, thank you. And just to clarify on Duncan's point there, you basically don't have a plan B. If this doesn't work, if it's still spilling over to the right-hand side and both sides are wet, then you'll have to look at it again. Then you haven't got a plan B at the moment.
Yeah, no, there isn't a plan B in terms of what we've worked up. I think because we're confident in the design as it is.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Thank you, members. If there's no further questions for the applicants, Catherine, do you want to raise any points with the applicants?
No, I don't think so. I think Steve mentioned that there is a planning condition about ongoing monitoring for a 5-year A of how the channel's working in terms of fish passage and so on as well. But Steve mentioned that.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Steve and Karen. We'll now move to discussion, debate. Members, anybody like to speak, to say anything? Sandy Brown now.
Hey, thank you very much. As committee members are aware, I've got to admit that I wasn't completely convinced about the value of a site visit for this application, but I did find it really useful. It helped me to visualise the issues raised by the application and the points in the objection. It also helped me to separate the material planning issues that we have to consider from a number of other points. We're being asked to decide on an application that complies fully with NPF 4 and LDP planning policies, and it looks to be absolutely in line with our statutory aims. On the specific issue that's been raised about the impact on agricultural land, the application aims to reduce flooding on a significant area of improved farmland with minimal agricultural impact on the land that's the subject of the application. We've had a discussion today about the timescales and management approaches involved in delivering those benefits and the implications of different approaches. So all things considered, in applying planning criteria, I'll be supporting this application, of course, subject to the proposed conditions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. John Kirk.
I just worry that, without the riverbed being lowered, we'll be back here in 5 years' time with a problem, because I really think the water table is raised because of the river, and I think there's a number of rivers in the valley which is suffering the same problem, and it is a major problem. The Nethy's in the same situation. Our farm's a big problem with it, but we have no, we can't diversify out of the river like you can. I can understand what you're trying to do, but I think without it coming back up the river a bit to lower the water table, I don't think it'll work, but never mind. That's only my opinion.
Okay, thank you, John. Bill Loban.
I think it goes back to what I originally mentioned during questions. I think really, if we're looking at things like this in the future, and potentially there will be many more of them, then we should really be looking at in detail about what impact this will have on the farms concerned. Because if we were in the middle of a town somewhere and someone was building a new hotel, we'd be looking for an economic impact assessment. So and we have a farming officer, so really potentially it should be part of his role to advise us independently of the circumstances. Now, it could be that it's positive or it could be that it's negative. Actually, we don't know that because it's never been assessed.
Okay, thank you. Hannah Grist.
Thanks, convener. Just to say that I also kind of echo Sandy's words that I found the site visit really useful, and the amount of information that's gone into this report incredibly useful. And I think that I've been convinced by the amount of modelling, evidence, and the depth of proposals. There's a really good balance between kind of ecological benefits, the flooding benefits, and the farming benefits. And I would like to see more of these kind of proposals to think about how we can implement kind of nature-based solutions to solve all those problems. So I would also be supporting this.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Eleanor McIntosh.
Thanks. Unlike Hannah, I remain unconvinced, but I fail to see in planning policy terms where I've got any real place to go with it. But I would like to make a comment at the end of the decision, whatever way it goes, about these types of applications. But at the moment, I feel I'm sort of cornered into going for approval.
Okay, thank you, Eleanor, and we'll come back to you after decision. Duncan Miller.
Yeah, I think I would be in the same position as Eleanor, and I just really hope that it does what it is intending to do, and that the fields on the right are going to become of more benefit in agricultural use. Yeah, I just really hope that and there's a good plan put in place to get those back into some sort of agricultural production, but probably the same as Eleanor in terms of planning. Yeah, can't really go anywhere else, it seems.
Okay, thank you, Duncan. Lauren.
No, just quickly, just to say that I feel very similar to Eleanor and Duncan. And actually, again, as Sandy, I wasn't quite as convinced, but the site visit did actually really help. And I'm actually really glad we went to go visit site. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you, members. Just from my own point of view, yeah, I mean, I think, as has been said in the report, it is an engineered landscape, and we all know that, and we know the reasons it was engineered to provide better agricultural land. Basically, now we're reverse engineering it. So I am still slightly disappointed that we don't have that agricultural impact. Maybe that's something we can impact assessment. Maybe that's something we can talk about with amongst ourselves at another time if we have more of these coming forward. And I think locally people are nervous because every action has a reaction, and I know it's been modelled. You haven't got a plan B if it doesn't work, as people have said. You very clearly say you're going to dry up the field on the right hand side. The town at Farmersfield, I really hope that happens. I mean, I worry what happens if it doesn't. But having said that, as has been said, I can't see anything in planning that can look to say, to propose anything else. So if unless anyone else is otherwise minded, then I think that the application is approved. Thank you very much. Eleanor, would you like to come back in just now?
Yeah, I don't know if it's when other people come back in, but I'll say it now anyway. I just think we will get a lot more of these types of applications, and I think we really need to seriously think about what policy hooks we want to put in place in our new LGP and National Park Partnership Plan with regard to Bill's very good point about economic assessments, and I think we're doing a lot of hoping here, and I don't think that's a good place to be in.
Okay, thank you, members. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Karen. If we could invite the other members of the committee back in and those online. Thank you. Okay, thank you, members. We'll move on to item 6 on our agenda, which is application for detailed planning permission, upgrade of a track for forestry. This is in retrospect at land near Lochbuin, Carbridge, and it's going to be introduced by Katie Crowder, our planning officer. Hi, Katie.
Apologies, sorry. Okay. So this application relates to an existing 220-metre section of track, which is located in an area of moorland to the east of Lochbuin, which is around 5 kilometres north of Duthil. The track was previously, prior to 2021, used for access for grouse shooting and moorland management, but has since then been used to aid the delivery of the Muckrock Forest landscape scale woodland planting project. So, sorry, that's not very clear, but this is the route of the track, which slopes up from the B9007, which you can see going up through the image. Is everything okay? At its western end towards there's access gates, which I'll show you more clearly in another image. So through the access gates, which provide access to the woodland enclosure, and then there's a turning area at the eastern edge of the track, which you can see there. So this proposal seeks retrospective planning permission for upgrading works, which have included widening the running surface of the track to around, or on average, 3.5 metres, reprofiling the track edges and creating a turning area at the eastern end of the track, which you can see there. These works were undertaken to support the delivery of the Native Woodland Project, which included construction of deer fencing, ground preparations and tree planting. So you can see on the site plan there, just before the turning circle, there are access gates which lead into the enclosure, and there's So the access gates have a vehicular access as well as a pedestrian access gate next to it. There's peatland next to the track, which appears to have been stripped and reinstated. It's revegetating naturally and will be assessed in spring 2026 to determine whether any further reseeding of the verges will be needed. Some additional planting of Scots pine, birch and willow is proposed around the entrance to soften the visual impact of the track. And in addition to the reseeding and the planting, 2 drainage channels which are marked on the plan, you can sort of see them in the sort of western half of the track, are being proposed to manage surface water. So this is just to provide a bit of context. This is the woodland creation plan for Muckrock Forest, which is a landscape scale project comprising 619 hectares of native woodland planting as well as mixed wildlife habitat. And the track in question is, I don't know if you can see it on the western side, it's A3, which provides access into the western enclosure there. Okay, so these are just some photos here. You can see this is the access to the track from the B9007. So it sort of there's a bit of a bend as you come into it, and then it sort of slopes up the way towards the gate and the turning area. So this is just further up, looking again up the slope of the track, and you can see the reinstated peatland along the edges. This is the access gates of the vehicular access, and then the pedestrian gate, which is open all the time. So this is beyond the gate, and this is the turning area at the top. And then this is from the gate looking back down towards, you can see the B9007, just to provide a bit of context. So in terms of the principle, the proposals to upgrade a section of pre-existing track on a route already used by the estate vehicles, and to access now the recently planted woodland. All the works will be seen within the context of the extensive native woodland planting scheme. So overall, we consider that the principle of the proposal is acceptable. The respective design, the track upgrades are of a functional design, and the materials used reflect this. The naturally revegetating verges, as well as the additional proposed planting and any further reseeding needed, will further minimise the already limited visual impact of the proposal and enable it to further integrate within its setting. So the design and the design of the proposal is of a scale and nature that's compatible with its setting, and it complies with the relevant design policies of National Planning Framework and the Local Development Plan. In respect of ecology, it's advised that in spring 2026, any remaining bare patches on the reinstated track verges should be sown with an upland heathland wildflower mix of Scottish provenance to facilitate faster regeneration, revegetation, which will be secured via a condition for a verge treatment and maintenance plan. The proposed planting around the road access western edge of the track will provide some biodiversity enhancement, and the track itself forms part of a wider native woodland project which will improve habitat connectivity and deliver significant biodiversity benefits. So therefore, the proposal complies with the relevant natural heritage policies, again, specifically National Planning Framework for policies 1, tackling the climate and nature crises, policy 2, climate change mitigation and adaptation, policy 3, biodiversity, as well as our own natural heritage policy 4. Landscape, in respect of landscape, the track has been surfaced in graded local material, and the sites have been sensitively reprofiled and have partially revegetated. Despite the track being made more prominent by its pale colour against the surrounding moorland, the profile of the slope limits its visibility from the road apart from the base where it meets the B9007. The proposed upgraded track will have limited and localised visual impact, and the mitigation measures such as the planting and reseeding will be secured via a condition and further reduce this impact. So as such, the proposal is considered acceptable in terms of its impacts on landscape in accords with Local Development Plan Policy 5 for landscape. And finally, access. There are no issues in respect of access. An unlocked pedestrian gate that can be used by cyclists, walkers and horse riders has been provided, and therefore it complies with the relevant policy in respect of access. So overall, the track is of a functional design. It's been reprofiled sensitively, utilising local materials, and the impacts are considered acceptable, subject to the recommended conditions. The proposed development complies with the relevant policies of National Planning Framework 4 and the Local Development Plan, and is recommended for approval subject to condition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Members, do we have any questions for Katie? Okay, thank you. Move on. I'd like to introduce the agent today, Christopher Farker. And I think you're going to give us a presentation, and you have 10 minutes, Christopher. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. So Katie has covered a lot of what was going to be within this presentation. Just provide some context. This slide here shows Machrach Estate in terms of the ownership boundaries and where the site is to the northwest. Just some further context within Machrach Estate, these are the forestry boundaries, which is made up of the forestry proposal, which was approved in 2022. Included over 600 hectares of new woodland planting. However, 130 hectares of that was lost this year due to the wildfires in June-July time. However, the plan is for that to be replanted over winter 25 into next year. Again, this is just an aerial image of the pre-existing track, which was used by 4x4 vehicles previously, as Katie said, for grouse shooting, moorland management activity. So it was an existing track that had been used before. This was the plan that obviously was in Katie's presentation, just to show the site plan, the turning area with the existing gate and the two proposed channel drains. This is just an aerial image of the track post-works, which there have been no works undertaken since May 2024. Should caveat that this application, it is retrospective. It was part of 3 applications. One of those applications was heard at the previous planning committee in August, and the third one follows this application as well. So, as Katie said, the works involved widening the existing track to circa 3.5 metres, reprofiling the edges, was used for machine and material deliveries to the site for the deer fencing, which, just to give you some context, the sort of dark purple lines around the 2 sites, those are the extent of the new deer fencing within the proposal. So it just gives you an idea of the length of new fencing. So in terms of the future proposed use, the plan is to keep using the track just for maintenance and monitoring purposes. As part of the forestry scheme, there's a 20-year contractual obligation to ensure that the fencing is maintained and also for management purposes. So in terms of the works that are still to be done, there's still 2 channel drains to be installed within the track, and as Kate mentioned, spring next year there will be the looking at to see if there's any bare patches that need to be reseeded to enable and help with the revegetation. And then the bottom images there just show you an example of the sort of before and after. and that is Katie has sort of covered the majority of what was going to be discussed. My colleague Ewan Reid, who's part of our forestry team, is also here, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Christopher. Members, do we have any questions for Christopher or Ewan? Hey, John Kirk.
The only one thing I worry about is 3.5 metres for, you know, in times of fires with these big slurry tankers. Is it wide enough, you know?
Well, we've used that track pretty extensively during the Carbridge fire, John. Although it wasn't ever really part of the plan, the turning area became one of the principal helicopter takeoff and landing points for our fire, as well as, if you like, our fire, as well as fighting fires for Codder and Lochendorb. And all of the vehicles that have used it thus far for both the forestry implementation works, the reinstatement of the fence that was burned recently, those vehicles are as big as the slurry tanker you mentioned, and have gone up and down it on 3.5 without any problem. I mean, the vast majority of forest roads have a 3.5, maybe 4 at a push running surface with you know, ditches and things on the other side extending the overall footprint. So we're happy on a 3.5 running surface for future management.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, members? Katie, would you like to ask the applicants any questions or bring anything back?
No, I don't think so. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Move on to discussion. Does anyone like to make any points, members? Pete Cosgrove.
It's for Katie. It's just generally, I think on tracks, it's been touched on by John, but I think it would be quite good to have a transparent consideration of wildfire management relations with tracks on pretty much all track applications now. From the work I've been doing with QAG, it's quite clear that existing tracks and new tracks can have quite an important role in strategic fire management. Now, that isn't going to always be the case. And until recently, when I've been involved with quite a lot of work on the wildfire, I'd have said restoring the centre bits of tracks and edges is a good idea, but sometimes there can be a brilliant strategic fire break. So it would be quite useful if we had a consideration, even if it's just simply this was considered and it's not an important fire break, because sometimes it will be important not to reinstate those areas and keep them as a bare buffer to stop things transferring. So just for future reference, that would be helpful. But I did see it was picked up slightly in your landscape stuff in paragraph 46. So it was good to see that, but I'd like to see that in all our track applications, if that's possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pete. I'm sure that's noted. John Kirk.
Some of the roads I did in the past, we used to have to put in passing places for emergency vehicles. That was used to be part of the stipulation, but it seems to have disappeared these days. So maybe the way things are, I think it maybe should be part of the policy.
Yeah, certainly note those points. I mean, in this one, we've got the turning area at the top, and applicants talked about how it was used during the recent wildfires. But yeah, we note those points about just bringing that into future appraisals of track applications. Absolutely.
Okay, members, would anyone else like to speak? Okay, the committee members content to take forward the officer's recommendation to approve? Okay, thank you. So that's approved. Thank you very much. Move on to item 7. It's an application for detailed planning permission, upgrade of track for forestry. In retrospect, land 940 metres northeast of Aucherteng, Carbridge, and the recommendation is to approve, and it's introduced by Katie again. Thank you.
Thanks, convener. Yeah, I will just pick up on a point that Christopher said. This is the third of the 3 track applications. Sorry, I should have said that at the beginning of the last application. So yeah, this is the third Muckrich track application. So this application relates to an existing 250 metre section of track located in an area of woodland at Aucherteng, just 2.5 kilometres north of Duffel. As with the previous track, this one was previously prior to 2021 used for grouse shooting and moorland management, but has since been used to support the delivery of the Muckrook Forest woodland planting project. Okay, so this is the route of the track again. Sorry, it's not very clear. So the track, as with the previous one, connects with the B9007 at its western end, and also gently slopes up to a sort of curve in the track. The curve just next to the access gates, and then along to a turning area at the eastern end. So here's just the site plan of the track. So this proposal also seeks retrospective planning permission for upgrading works, which also have included the widening of the running surface of the track to approximately 3.5 metres, reprofiling the track edges and creating a turning area at the eastern end of the track. As mentioned before, these works were undertaken to accommodate the machinery and vehicles needed to deliver the Muckrook Forest project. Around 90 metres up the track are access gates into the woodland enclosure. There's a locked vehicular access and a pedestrian gate to the side, sort of at 90 degrees to the vehicle access. It's proposed that the pedestrian gate, which is currently a bit awkward to access, will be moved to next to the vehicular access gate on the track itself to improve accessibility. The reprofiled track edges also do appear to be revegetating naturally and will also be assessed in spring 2026 to determine whether any further reseeding is required. In addition, some trees on the northern edge of the track have been removed, and a tree planting plan has been conditioned to ensure that some of these are replanted, or these are replanted. 2 drainage channels are also proposed on the more sloping western part of the track, which you can see there marked on the plan, and those will be installed to manage surface water. So again, this is the woodland creation plan. I got it wrong previously, so we're looking at A3 now. Previously, as Christopher showed you on his plan, the previous track is further up, so this is the one that's further down. On the western side, but again, you've obviously seen that a few times now. So again, this is the access to the track. This is from the B9007, so you can see that again the surrounding woodland context of this track. As you come to the come onto the track on the left-hand side, this is the first section, which you can see there, and then on the right-hand side is a little bit further up, and you can see the gate at the top there as well. So this is from the other side of the gate, looking back down the track, but this just gives you a good visual of the vehicular access, but also the pedestrian access, which is a little bit of a scramble to sort of get around from the other side up, and there's a sort of navigate a tree and climb sort of back down on this side. So the proposal will be to relocate that gate to the side of the vehicular access, with a bit of reprofiling there to provide more suitable access, pedestrian access. So this is beyond the gate. This is the stretch towards the turning circle. You can see the woodland on the right, and this part on the left where there has been some tree removal. And this is from the turning circle, looking back down the track, and then this is the turning area at the eastern end. So in terms of the principle, again, it relates to the upgrading of a section of pre-existing track on a route that's already historically has been used and continues to be used. And all works will be seen within the context of the extensive native woodland planting schemes. So overall, the principle of a track here is considered acceptable. In terms of design, track upgrades are of a functional design and the materials used reflect this. The revegetating verges and any further reseeding will help minimise the visual impact of the proposal, and it'll help it further integrate within its setting. So the design is of a scale and nature that's compatible with its setting and complies with the relevant design policies. In respect of ecology, as with the previous track, it's advised that in spring 2026, any remaining bare patches on the reinstated track verges should be sown with an upland heathland wildflower mix to facilitate faster revegetation, and this will be secured via a condition for verge treatment and maintenance plan. Some trees have been removed from the northern side of the track, and as such, a condition has been included requiring a tree planting plan and maintenance programme to provide appropriate replacement tree planting next to the track. But overall, the environmental impacts of the proposal are considered acceptable, subject to the proposed conditions. The track is part of a wider project to plant native woodland, which will deliver improved habitat connectivity and biodiversity benefits. So therefore, it complies with the relevant natural heritage policies of both National Planning Framework 4 and the Local Development Plan. In terms of landscape, the track has been surfaced in graded local material, and the sides have been sensitively reprofiled and are partially revegetated. So the effects of the proposal on landscape character are limited, given its siting on a previous track and the presence of other tracks in the wider area and its proximity to the B9007. The track is largely contained within existing woodland and overall would have very limited visual impacts. Ensuring the verges are revegetated and some additional tree planting is provided, both of which will be secured via a condition. This will further integrate the track within its setting, and as such it's considered acceptable in terms of its impacts on landscape in accordance with the Local Development Plan Policy 5 on landscape. And finally, for access, it's acknowledged that the current pedestrian gate is slightly awkward to access, and the applicant proposes to move the gate alongside the vehicular gate to improve accessibility, so therefore it complies with the relevant policies in respect of access. So overall, the track is of a functional design, it's been reprofiled sensitively and has limited localised visual impacts. So it is considered acceptable subject to the recommended conditions.
Okay, thank you once again, Katie. We'll move to questions for the planning officer, and first is Jiva Blackett.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, I'm echoing. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jiva.
Okay. Perhaps it's just me that's echoing here. Actually, it's better now. Perhaps this is actually a question for the applicant, but I find that gate rather brutal. I know it's a petty thing, but you know, we're talking about design and access, and it's, you know, the rest of it's all in wood and it sort of fits in, and then you've suddenly got this metal gate that it just looks a bit forbidding. I wonder if there's a reason.
Would you like to answer that, Katie?
I can answer if you want. I'll go. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I guess we've assessed the proposal that's in front of us, and it has been assessed in terms of landscape, which our landscape advisor was comfortable with the gate and how it's been fenced, etc. So we have no reason to, I guess, you know, we're satisfied that it's appropriate. There may be a practical reason why that specific gate was chosen, but from our perspective in planning terms, it's acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, under the, you know, the specifications we have to use under our forestry grant scheme contract requirements, that's the type of gate that is specified within as an industry standard, councillor. So that's why it's there. It's long lasting. It doesn't twist and allow the potential for deer to get in. it's a practical solution to the standards that we are expected to work to under the rules of the grant application. So that's why it is as it is.
Okay, it was just a minor point, really, a niggle.
Okay, thank you, Jiva. We don't mind your niggles. Anne Ross.
Thank you. Good morning. Just a question regarding the mix that was going to be used to reseed. Was it the vergers? We said it was upland, and I've probably got this wrong. Heathland and an upland mix. Is this an upland mix from a Scottish upland mix of seeds that are native to? I'm going to say the area, to the Highlands, or is it? Where does it come from? Thank you.
I could let Scott answer, or please explain it, or if I've got it incorrect. But yeah, the mix is an upland acid heathland wildflower mix. So it's suggested Scotia Seeds Highland Grassland mix. Is suggested by our ecological advisor as the most suitable mix to use. Scott, you may want to explain.
Yes, I'm happy to come in. So as Katie had said, it is a Scotia Seeds mix, which is a Scottish company based in Fife. But actually, a lot of their mixes come from so a lot of their seed is collected from different parts of the country. And actually, the Upland Heathland wildflower mix, I think, is from the Highlands that it's actually collected. So various components of that mix have come from different places, but most of it is from the Highlands. Hope that helps.
It does. Thank you.
Okay, Dave can come in and...
Yeah, just to clarify, Convener, that is Scott Shanks, who's our Ecological Advice Officer. So he provided that advice, which has been used as the basis for that suggested condition.
Thank you. It just that it didn't go through the chair.
Okay, thank you. Question from Kenny Deans.
Hi, it's a question for Katie about the access. You talk about the pedestrian gate and access for cyclists and walkers. But it's not featured as a condition. Are you content that it doesn't need to be conditioned?
I think sorry, I'm not exactly sure. I possibly should have thought of it as a condition. It was discussed with the applicant, and they have included it within their supporting statement. So I guess they obviously have to adhere to what they've put forward. But that is maybe a point I should have included that as a condition. I'm not sure, or yeah, and that could be done, I believe.
Dave, would you like?
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm sure the applicant would be more than happy to do that. They've already committed to that, and we'd be happy to add a condition to that effect. That would be perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. I'll come to you in a second. Thank you. Thank you. Pete Cosgrove.
It's really picking up the point I made on the last application. Are we comfortable that the applicant is happy with the condition of revegetating the verges and putting as a planning condition? It may kind of be forced upon them if it has an important role in strategic wildfire management. Do we know if the applicant is happy with that condition? If they are, I'll shut up now.
I think my understanding is that they are happy. We've taken advice from our ecological advisor, and they are content with that. So hence
That's fine. That's great. That's all I wanted.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're just going to come to the applicants anyway, so they can maybe address any of these points during your presentation. So, has any more questions for Katie? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to hand back over to the agent for the applicant, Christopher Farquhar again. And again, you've got 10 minutes, Christopher. And if you would like to address any of the points that have come up there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. So, similar to the previous application, that is Machrach Estate there, with the location of the site to the sort of south of the estate. again, that's forestry boundaries within Machrach, and as we've discussed, those are the forestry proposal there. This is aerial image from before the works commenced. So, as per the previous application, existing farm track that was used for grouse shooting and moorland management activity. The proposal, obviously, there is the gate which has got allows for vehicular access, but also pedestrian via the gate. It is part of the proposal to relocate the gate, which I'll show you further up in the presentation, which will also include some minor re-levelling to accommodate the gate and allow more appropriate pedestrian access. There is also the 2 channel drains as well, and the turn-in area at the sort of top of the track to the east. This aerial image just shows the track post works. Again, similar to the previous track, the plan, the works they've undertaken include rewinding to 3.5 metres again. The verges reprofiled, again, similar. Let's skip on to this one. There is also the condition attached for spring next year for if there are any bare patches in terms of the vet be reseeded with the appropriate mix as per the proposal to accept that.
Could I say for the verges?
For the verges.
But we have concern. Sorry, my apologies. New to this. Yeah, entirely happy with reseeding on verges, but any suggestion of a strip up the middle of the track we do have concerns about from a usage of track and safety concern, which we've raised with KT in the past, and the point that our colleague here has been talking to earlier in terms of fire needs to be given some thought. And I'm not jumping on a bandwagon with that. I assure you, having spent 3 days fighting that fire, it's not pleasant. Verges for sure, not centre of the track if that's at all possible. Thank
you. Again, for this track, it will be used in the future for maintenance of the deer fencing surrounding the forestry proposal, and also for management purposes. As I said previously, contractual obligations part of the forestry grant scheme for the next 20 years. The outstanding works that are required, the top 2 images show proposed locations of channel drains to be installed, and the bottom 2 images show the as existing gate to the left, which is sort of 90 degrees to the track, with the proposal to move the gate where it's shown in the sort of centre with the timber railings. So that is part of the proposed works alongside the 2 channel drains that are outstanding. And as we've discussed in terms of the verges, any reseeding works that are required in springtime next year. I don't have to answer any other questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Christopher. Do we have any questions for Christopher? Okay, thank you.
One point I would like to raise, if that's possible, convener.
Okay.
And it's to do with the conditioning on the replanting. Katie, I wonder if between us maybe we got something slightly lost in context. So I do apologise to everyone here, but the trees. So in terms of the previous application, absolutely no problem with that at all. With this one, the trees that were removed when the track was upgraded are lodgepole pine that had regenerated from the neighbouring Duffel Wood prior to part of it being felled. As a result, they're non-native and don't fit with the, raison d'etre of the wider scheme that's been put in place. So, in our view, the removal of them is neither here nor there in the grand scheme of things. The objective of the Muckrack scheme is to create site native woodland, and we've taken away non-native woodland, a small number of trees to widen the track. So, and we just planted something like 650,000 trees in the wider scheme. So, look, I'm not going to die in a ditch about it, but do we really need to condition a few more trees in that locus given that context? Open question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the condition came as a result of our consultation with Highland Council's tree officer, and I think and what I think what they've asked is to put in a tree planting plan, but what that covers, that's something that can be, you can look at. It doesn't necessarily, and I don't imagine it would be need to include exactly what was taken out, as long as it's again a native replacement, or to see some kind of planting along that side of the track. The extent of it and what it is all the detail that could be considered through the tree planting plan you provide.
Point of order, Chair. Is that appropriate, this conversation?
I'm just going to come to Dave to speak about that. Thank you.
Convener. Yeah, I think my view on that is the application is as it stands at the moment, and the report is as it stands at the moment. There's a condition on there which is a response to a consultee comment. We're happy to engage with the applicant, post decision. We can have conversations around whether there's an application to vary or remove that condition. But my view at the moment would be that we need to determine the application on the basis of the report that's in front of you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions for the agents? Steve McElroy.
Yeah, the proposed replanting area, is that within the deer fence? So that area is protected by a deer fence? Is that right?
That would be the logical thing to do, Steve, if we're going to go ahead with it, yes.
So why don't you just allow natural regeneration to take place there and see what comes up rather than plant something?
It is happening as we speak, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Katie, would you like to come ask the agents anything about anything they brought up?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to discussion. Would anyone like to speak on this? Okay, members, if there's no one wishing to speak on it, I think we may be going to add a condition about the gate, as was brought up, and pass over to Dave about that.
Yeah, very comfortable, as I said before, to add that condition. Applicant confirm they're comfortable with that. So if that's what the committee is minded, we'd be happy with approval subject to that additional condition.
Okay, members, if we're happy with that, are members content to take forward the officer's recommendation, including the condition about the pedestrian gate? If that's the case, then that's granted. Thank you very much. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Ian. Okay, members, thank you. Move on to item 8 on the agenda, which is AOCB, and it's the Corrymashy substation update, and I'll pass over to Dave again.
Thank you, Convener. I just wanted to provide the committee with just a brief update on SSEN transmissions proposals for the Corrymashy substation, which members will recall is the substation which will provide the grid connection between the Loch Erba pumped storage hydro scheme and connecting that in with the grid via the Bewley Denny power line. Members will probably recall that SSEN undertook a consultation during the summer on substation location options, and that consultation looked at really a range of potential site options for the location of a substation, and they've now published an update report following the close of that consultation process. That report identifies that the site which is now going to be taken forward for the next stage of the process, which is basically detailed design, is site option 1, identified in the original consultation. That's a site which is located in the National Park, and it was identified by SSEN as a preferred site during the consultation process. We understand that the consenting process for the substation will be through the mainstream planning process, so rather than the energy consents unit in Scottish Government. So that will mean a planning application in due course, which we'll no doubt call in for determination ourselves. There will also need to be an underground cable connection between the hydro scheme and the substation, but we understand SSEN are proposing or intend to take that forward under their permitted development rights. So in terms of next steps, our understanding is that SSEN will then start the statutory pre-application consultation process, which is under the terms of planning legislation, in spring of next year, working towards then a more formal application later on in the year. I think there is also, we understand that there is a community meeting taking place to provide sort of an update on where they are. That's at Lagan Village Hall on Thursday the 27th of November. So I just wanted to pass that on for information. I can circulate a link to that consultation report if that would be helpful for members as well after the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Could I just ask a question? When you say there that option 1 was identified as the preferred option in the earlier consultation, was that the preferred option of SSEN or the preferred option of the community?
It was SSEN that identified that as the preferred option, yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure it was the preferred option of the community, but anyway. Okay, thank you. That's the end of the public part of Planning Committee meeting, so we'll now move to confidential session if we are content to do that, members. Thank you.